G'day, my name is Trevor Young. Welcome to the Reputation Revolution show. It's great to have your company. Now, today we're going to dissect what's involved in designing a one-person business around your personal brand. And to help me unpack this terrific topic, I have in the virtual studio Ellen Donnelly, who coaches entrepreneurs to build a profitable one-person business within 5 months. Welcome, Ellen.
Hey Trevor, great introduction. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Hey, you wouldn't be dead for quids, would you? What an amazing time in our history. It's never been easier to start our own business and to be our own sort of a micro business, but we don't have to think small anymore.
For sure. And I was at this conference at Web Summit a few years ago with the founders of the startup accelerator I was working for at the time, and they did this big presentation like it's never been easier to start a business, the costs have never been lower, access and barriers have never been lower. And that really chimed with me 5 years ago, and that becomes truer and truer every single day. So yeah, I feel blessed that I get to help people see how easy it can be if they choose themselves.
Indeed. Now, just for a bit of context, I'm going to throw a question at you. What were you doing 10 years ago?
Well, it's funny because it's the 10-year anniversary since I started work. Like my graduate job out of university commenced this time 10 years ago. So I was working in London. I've always worked in London, in the city, like the kind of financial district, real corporate London, and I was a headhunter. So I was chosen as one of the graduate headhunters to join the team, and basically spent my days trying to understand the land of technology and digital transformation that was happening inside big corporates, and try and find the right talent to come in and help companies evolve from a corporate digital transformation perspective. So that was a lot of research, which was good because I had a history degree, and that's kind of the only practical application that I managed to bring with me from the time I spent at university. And I was calling people who were 10, 20, 30 years my senior, pretending to be at peer level on the phone to them, helping them identify what their next career move could be. So I've always worked in the world of work, careers, helping people figure out what they want to do. I just came at it from quite a corporate angle to begin with. But I think it, helped me cut my teeth speaking to people in a credible way, and to learn, what you're talking about pretty quickly on those calls with people earning, $200,000, $300,000 or pounds a year.
Big difference between pounds and dollars these days.
I know.
So fast forward to today, you're running a thriving business coaching practice called, I love the name by the way, The Ask. Tell us about that and why The Ask.
Why the ask? So, as I mentioned, I've kind of spent my entire working life helping people with their careers. And what I saw time and time again was this question: what should I do? Who am I? What's the work that will be the best fit for me? And I helped people answer that through my work as a headhunter. When I was working in the startup accelerator, I was helping founders figure out what their thing was in their business. A lot of the time, it was helping them figure out, should they stay in a business? Should they start a new business? And for myself, throughout the time, I was like, what's my real thing? What do I want to be best known for and doing with my time? And it's a big question. It's one of the biggest questions you have to answer alongside who to marry, where to live, what should we do for work? And I think that the answer to what you should do for your work lies within you. And it just takes some intentional questions. So asking the right questions. And that's really what my
Right.
role is as a coach. So I really set out to build a business to help people answer that question. But as you know,
Yep.
Trevor, when you start a business, the original intention you have often kind of slightly shifts in line with what you learn about the market and what customer expectations are and questions are. And over time, I felt like more people were asking me a question of how can I turn my skills into a business? And I love entrepreneurship. So that's how it kind of evolved over the past few years.
Yeah, nice. Now you've written it's a meaty, but it's still stripped back. Can you be both? Can you be meaty and stripped back? I'm going to say that you is. It's well, let's call it a guide, it's called Design a One-Person Business Around Yourself, and we're going to unpack that because it's got all the elements, and this is the personal brand monetization show, and obviously that requires business nous, business dealings in the background, automations, all the things we're going to talk about. So let's walk through that. Will shall we? First of all, let's look at the 5 parts of it. So number one, you've got, and we'll unpack each one, how to define your unique contribution, how to create a business that stands for something, how to design your service and a unique methodology, how to do sales and marketing, and then how to scale your time and make enough money to live the life that you want and to keep food on the table and travel and all that sort of great stuff. So you're happy to let's walk through this. How to define your unique contribution. This is a phrase that you use in your newsletter, and you've got a terrific newsletter. I do recommend people sign up to your newsletter. But how to define your unique contribution, all around messaging and positioning, and walk us through it.
Right. Yeah, I love that you identify that it's a meaty thing. So we capitalise the word guide, just to be clear that it's it's a big guide. My team member said we should put a capital G on this, just so people get it. So yeah, it's been a long time in the making, and really the accumulation of lots of my thinking over the years in one place. So let's talk it through. So the first piece is that unique contribution, and that expression is one that really chimes with me because of what I just mentioned around people trying to figure out what makes them tick, what makes the right job or business right for them. And I say it boils down to knowing your unique contribution. So that's the abilities that you have, how you show up in the world, what's different about you than anybody else. So even if you have a podcast about PR and personal branding as you do, your unique contribution is going to make your podcast and your way of doing business so different to anyone else who might decide to show up and do the same thing. And that's because of your personality, your values, the life experiences you've had, how you want to build your business, your goals, the impact you want to have. Like every single piece of that puzzle defines what you stand for and how you show up and how you work. And that's a real underrated form of business advice, in my opinion, is going deep into those layers so that the foundations you build before you set out with a sales or marketing plan or whatever are a lot clearer, and they're very you. Because if it's you're doing and it really comes from within, that one person business building journey is going to feel much easier and kind of fulfilling. Yeah. So that's the first piece. I go into what that looks like from a layer of personality. I've got some kind of, not quizzes, but, questions you can ask yourself, things about what shaped you in your past, what do you want to be known for, what impact do you want to have. So that's the high level of unique contribution, and I'm really proud of that idea and how it really encapsulates everything that I've been trying to articulate over the years and then bring that into business building.
Terrific. And I guess there's a couple of parts to that as well, is that we are unique, and I love the way you've called it contribution, because that, a lot of people go into business and what can I sell and how much money can I make? And it's really, this is a more holistic way of looking things, and what can I contribute? What value can I contribute that people are going to, enough value that people will pay for me? But of course, standing out today is so difficult. And I guess that on one part of it, where we're all unique, and that's our unique selling point, that we are all different, and that's our personal brand, and that's our strength, that we do what we do. But being able to package that, articulate it, market that, communicate that is quite difficult.
Yeah, and I like the expression, you can't often see the label when you're standing inside the jar. So for anyone who's thinking, I know I'm unique, I know I'm special, I know I'm brilliant, and I can contribute a lot and add a lot of value, but how do I articulate what that looks like and why I'm different than the next person? That is quite hard to find the language and find the expression around it. So yeah, this is not news to you and probably your listeners who are in this world. It often takes somebody outside to be able to walk you through your past or what it is that is different, because they can see it from an external point of view.
Yeah, we get inside our own heads. And we overthink. We overthink
the simple stuff. So often when I'm working with people, it's so quick for me to see it, and they're like, oh yeah, that was in front of my face the whole time. But perhaps you can discard it because it's too obvious to you. It's too close to home. Yeah. It doesn't feel, I don't know, like revolutionary or hard, like there's a graph to it. And actually, like I say, the more intuitive and simple it is, can be the right thing. And let's be clear, we're not products. We're not a one-dimensional thing where we can articulate who we are in one line, snappy slogan. That's, I think, where people get stuck. It's more about going, what do I want to be known for at the end of the day? What's true of me in the way I do business and in my life? And, if just to give some examples here, perhaps, what I've identified in myself is I can be very structured, very analytical, very thoughtful. And so that's me in many ways. So it comes out in my work, in my writing, in my sessions, but also in my personal life. I'm, one for lists and like vision boards and that kind of stuff. And
Yep.
that's a good style of coaching or writing for some people, but it's not going to resonate with others who maybe want something more flashy or
Yep.
quick tips. I'm a bit more, let me lay it out step by step for you to get there.
So, of the questions you asked people, and there was quite a few things that you touched on there to enable them to come up with their unique contribution with your help. What are the ones? What are the questions you find that people struggle with the most, and also what are the questions that you find, or the question that people get really quickly? That you're surprised that they nail it pretty quick. Is it that simple?
Yeah, kind of. So I think the one that comes quite easily to people is personality type. And we
Yeah.
could probably have a whole other episode on how much of that is, how much do we kind of stay in a type throughout our lives and believe that we're all a certain way because we've been told we're a certain way versus perhaps explore alternative ways of being. But let's stay in a kind of simple form of that, which is, most people get like their personality and their values pretty quickly with the right questions. They're like, oh yeah, this is who I am, this is what I stand for. I
Yeah.
think the piece that people stumble over and find harder to define, it does come down to that niche. It's like, where do I want to play? How do I want to
Yeah.
show up as a result of those things? So what I mean by that is the type of work that they choose from a marketing efforts perspective. Do they go down the road of podcasting as you do, or do they go down the road of something else? Or how do they want to work with clients? What kind of interaction on a personal level versus asynchronous remote do they want to have? So it's kind of turning the insights that they have about themselves into business decisions. That's where people get stuck. And I think the reason is that there's so many comparisons available to us, how other people are running their businesses. It's easier to go, well, I should be doing XYZ. Of course, I have to have a whatever platform or program. But then the reality of them running like a program with 20 clients at one time isn't a good fit for their personality and values, if that makes sense. So it's
Yeah.
leveraging decision making as a result of knowing your unique contribution, that people can stay stuck in circles for months, if not years, and then look at their business and say, I haven't really done that much. And it's because they haven't just run with something that's quite clear and obvious.
Yeah, yeah. And do you find people don't like to niche? Is this where the niching comes in, or is that a bit later?
Yeah, so I mentioned niche. I guess niche being like, where do you want to play in the market? So what do you
Yeah.
want to be setting your specific business goals around? I want to be a top podcaster. I want to be charging higher fees or one-to-one or whatever. Niche then comes down to who do you want to work with as a result of those decisions. So who
Yeah.
you want to work with is a part of that earlier piece. Who would be a good fit for my personality, my brand, and so on. But it's also partly down to like customer appetite and pricing. Who wants what I'm personally really good at delivering? And so that's kind of almost this third layer of that decision making tree I was talking about. If I'm really well suited to a business that looks like XYZ, who are the right people who need that and want that? And that's the third layer, which we can talk about.
Yep. And what I like about the theme there is unique. Unique to you, what you are, but also unique who you are. Finding out your own uniqueness and using that as a way of a bit more of a discovery tool. So number 2 was how to create this is of your guide, how to create a business that stands for something. I love all of this. You've got a bit of a diagram there where you talk about impact, method, operating principles, game plan, and goals. Is that the best way to tackle this, or I'll let you go? What is this step all about?
Yeah, so I'll break each one down, and then before that, just to reference the point of this whole section, which is you can have a service. And by the way, I do talk about one person business building in the form of a service, as opposed to like content creation. So I think content creation, you can try lots of things and see what sticks, and then scale that from there. Whereas a service, you do have to invest a bit more time and energy defining your service and finding clients. And so what I mean by having a business that stands for something is, don't just look at the label of what you do: coaching, consulting, recruiting, accounting, design, whatever the service might be. Think about the why behind the service. And this isn't groundbreaking idea. I mentioned Simon Sinek right at the top because we know that we need to have a why. But a lot of people think about that as an afterthought. And I want my clients and anyone reading this guide to go, what is my starting point for doing this work and helping these people? Okay, got it. Right. Now how do I want to articulate that? And the IMOG framework is a way that I help people do that. So the first piece is impact. So if we think about, maybe we can try this with you, Trevor, for a kind of a moment, but if we think about your business and the impact you want to have, how does the world look different as a result of the work that you've done in 20 years? If you were able to have all the impact you could possibly have, what's different in the world?
Well, my whole reason for doing what I do is really to work with people who have got credibility and they've been in the trenches for a long time, and to help them get out there online and to build that personal brand and to create content. And the people who are really credible, who have got all that knowledge and they're experts and potentially thought leaders, they tend to keep it in a lot more. And they're the ones we want to hear from. We don't want to hear from the, not necessarily people. There's a lot of people in the online world who talk very loudly, and they game the system and everything, but we don't necessarily always want to hear from them. We want to hear from the real credible people. And I think the more we can hear from people who are genuine experts and in their field, they've got the experience, the scars on the knuckles to prove it. They've been in the trenches. They've got a lot of wisdom and a lot of, lessons learned to share. The world's going to be better for us to hear from those people, the people that are going to add value, and the more of those experts and genuine experts who are out there doing that, I think that's better. And of course, for them personally, they will hopefully build a bigger platform and reach more people. So I guess from what I do, if I can help others reach create a bigger platform and reach more people, then I have a ripple effect in that regard. So does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. So what I love about your answer is it starts off quite tactical, I want to help experts spread their message. But if you keep going with that, as you did, you kind of obviously thought about this stuff before. It's like, what's the byproduct of that work? Okay, there's more experts who are seen and heard more loudly than just the noisiest people. Okay, you didn't mention this, but what happens if you take that a step further? There's more genuine, helpful, valuable information in the world, and people have their problems solved quicker, and the world's a better place, right? You can keep going. And what's quite funny about the first one, this impact piece, is most people's impact statement ends up, if you keep taking it further, like, the world's a better place. And so we want to find something in that kind of sweet spot between specificity and like vague general platitudes. And yours would be like, experts' voices are heard more loudly, as a result of the work that you've done. Great. So step 2 would be your method. Again, many people in the world might be running businesses with a very similar goal, like impact statement to you, and that's fine. We don't worry about that piece being unique. It's the following steps that make you do it your way. So method is how you achieve that. What will you offer? So we're speaking on your podcast. It's pretty evident you have a podcast. I don't know what else you have in the pipeline or have done, but the method that you achieve your impact is going to be yours, unique to what you're good at and what you want to do. So for listeners thinking about this for them, this comes back to what I mentioned before around what are you really good at, what do you want to be doing, what's in your sweet spot. So are you going to be running events? Are you going to be delivering a very valuable service that only you only take on 2 clients a year, as I've seen, and businesses can work like that as well. So that's the method. Part 3, O, stands for operating principles. So this is how you show up. You might have heard of the book Ray Dalio, Principles. Very similar idea to that concept, or values. It's what will you do and what won't you do. I won't take on a client who's not ready to do this work, for example, or I won't operate in every geography because it will dilute the message or whatever, or I will dedicate a portion of my profits to charity or take on pro bono work. These decisions are really empowering when you have them actually ahead of time, and they can be difficult. Principles aren't always meant to feel easy. Sometimes they're meant to challenge you, and your kind of values and your credibility can be shown through your principles, and you can talk about them with your clients or in your marketing, but living them out is the key.
I agree.
And then the game plan. Should I keep going?
Yes, please. Yes.
the next step is game plan. So you can think of this like strategy, and the best way I can imagine somebody doing this is writing a mini essay, and at the top it's titled, "Here's how I'm going to run this business." So you've got your impact statement, what you want to change in the world. You've got your method. I'll be doing this through coaching, courses, events, or whatever. You've got your principles. I will be doing this. I won't be doing that. Okay, what else needs to be on this game plan? Well, things like I'm going to network via these groups of people because they're the ones who are going to spread the message and they're the ones that share my values. Or I'm going to be an expert on LinkedIn because that's the platform that has the potential for me first. So it's really like how you're going to get there.
Yes.
And then the last part, which you really can't untangle from the game plan, that's kind of two parts of the same coin, is your goals. So what do you want to achieve through this vehicle? Do you want to hit 1 million turnover? Do you want to just be working 3 days a week and keep the same income as your corporate salary? You see how those are two quite different things? I wouldn't say that if you have both goals, you're really thinking about that much. Like, think about which goals are true for you, not just vanity metrics. So when I started out, I didn't know what goals to put. So I just wrote 1 million turnover, 100,000 subscribers. And then the longer I started running a business, I was like, when on earth is that going to happen? And now I'm like, well, I'm nowhere near that, but I'm so fulfilled. So, it's like being realistic about what you actually need to have a fulfilled business. So that's the statement. So obviously each one could be its own topic, but thanks for indulging me.
Yeah, and I the operating principles, I use that phrase as well. But it's values. It's your non-negotiables. The way you show up in the world and how you want to do business, and as you said, who you don't want to work for is just as important as who you do want to work for. And I guess with me, it is that working with people who have got that credibility and how I can help them. In terms of, interested that the goals were at the end, and I guess we're always, in strategy stuff and everything, we always put goals right at the front. And I'm interested to, do you have to do it in that particular order? Is that desirable, or you can do it all concurrently?
I think you can do it concurrently. Some people come to this exercise having really clear intentions for one piece and not the others. And so if you know something to be really true about yourself, put that in. Imagine it's like a recipe. What do you have in your cupboard? Okay, I know I have this. What goes with it? So if one of your goals is like, let's take that, I only want to work 3 days a week goal as an example, that dictates what your strategy, your game plan can be. It dictates an operating principle. So it can be at the same time, but there's a guy who your listeners will probably love as well, and he's called Alex Smith, and he writes a newsletter, The Hidden Path, all about strategy. And he has a big thing about strategy and goals, and he's like, your goal isn't your strategy. Your goal to be the number one in your industry, that's not a strategy. You need a plan to be the number one that is more than just your intention. So that's why I'm not leading with it.
Yeah, no, fair call. I agree with that. And I think even when I do strategy, I look at, yes, what do you want to achieve? But then you can break down goals, and I talk about aspirational anchor. What's that one thing that's going to get you out of bed? Because some people hate goals, and they have to slowly come around to it. But there are people who are goal setters, and there are those who don't like setting goals, I've found. But I think the one thing that you need is that aspirational anchor that's going to really drive you forward. Number 3 of your guide, your 5-step guide, we've got how to design your service and a unique methodology. There's a quote you've got here I liked that popped out at me. It's called, the quote is, building a one-person business around yourself is about mastery of your craft and creating something you'll want to run for a long time. Design your service and unique methodology. What should we know about this?
Yeah, I think the point of this is like choosing a service, and by service I mean, what do you do with your clients? What is that contribution and the problem you're solving? Choosing something that you have fallen in love with that problem. You're really excited, maybe just to go back to the example you used, it's your anchor. It's something that you care deeply about. And so when you think through that lens, it's less about having a job. I'm a designer, accountant, consultant, whatever, and I just do what I'm told. And it's much more, how do I want to spend my time and my days on this earth doing this thing? and you can design that service. And this is the bit that's quite challenging, because a lot of people just assume, again, that it needs to look a certain way because clients have certain expectations, or maybe they're even working on another person's business as a consultant on a day rate. But I want to reverse that thinking and say, no, if you sit down intentionally and design something from scratch, obviously you have to test it and see if it delivers the value that you hope it will with clients in real life. But let's say you could spend your days doing exactly what you wish you could do, and you design that service from scratch, and it goes with, okay, I start off with a workshop day, and then I do a deep dive, and I do an industry analysis, then I do a report, and then we have a call, and then and then blah, 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 blah. And that takes 6 months because I really want to work with somebody in their business for 6 months, not 1 month, right? If you design that in the way that you would love to show up, maybe it'll be harder to get yeses from everybody, but it's going to make the ones that do choose you fall in love with you and your way of doing it. So this is just my call to arms for people to say, just because things look like this in your industry doesn't mean it's the only way of doing things. So going over the earlier pieces, it's why this is in this order. What's my unique contribution, my goals, my game plan, my values? What does that lend itself to when it comes to a service? And the packaging of it, the program itself, the touch points you have with clients. A recent example for me is I am a coach, and I do, I jump on Zoom calls with people or in meeting rooms. I'm in one now, but that doesn't mean that I can only just sit there and ask them questions and write down notes, right? Like, I've designed my service to be very practical, very hands-on, constantly pulling out like a Miro board or a Notion board and creating tables and structuring their thinking. And I've added to my service recently like a marketing bonus. I'm actually going to go and create a PDF or a lead magnet for them because I love that stuff, and I love creating visuals and their branding. And that's something that's unique to how I do business, and another coach wouldn't want to do it like that. So this whole section, I've kind of had to summarize it for the sake of time here. But the point that you called out, which is that you'll fall in love with your craft, it's like, what gets you excited and how can you do more of that? Not water it down, but more of it. So I use examples in this guide around like creating a retreat or a 360 audit for somebody, or running a networking events. And these can be additional to your service, regardless of what industry you're in. You can do that if it makes sense for your clients and for you, because it's going to light you up. Because whatever lights you up keeps you in business longer. And I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely. And some of those, they might start off as little experimentations because, it's something you really want to do and you think your clients will like it. They probably don't know. They don't know what they don't know, so they don't know to ask for it. But as you offer it and people do ask for it, and then that could take over your core business over a period of time.
Sure.
And therefore you could well be doing something interesting, more interesting than maybe what you were doing. And that's a good thing. You also talk about methodology, and obviously you've used unique methodology, and of course that's a great way for people who run expertise-based businesses to differentiate their personal brand and their business from their competitors, and people buy into their their professional methodology. What's your take on methodology? I mean, clearly you've created your own that you're articulating it right here now, and obviously you're refining that as you go all the time.
That's the key point, right? We're always refining, we're always tweaking, it's always improving. The business that you have today will look different in a year and 2 years' time. So what I encourage people to do is not feel like they have to land on the perfected final version of their method. It's, what do I know today that I am proud of having learned? What have I been through the trenches on personally or with my clients, and I now know to be true? Okay, put that in the methodology somewhere. So perhaps we could take like a consultant as an example here. Do you do any consulting, Trevor, for clients?
That's been my stock in trade. I'm evolving to coach, but consulting is what I've done most of my life.
So let's say that as a consultant, you decided, like, I'm going to create something, that package service, not just what I'm being asked to do, but I'm going to create my Trevor stamped consulting package. Your methodology would basically have looked at everything you've ever done, or within reason, and gone, what were the key things that made a difference to this client's business or life, and what was like a kind of nice to have, because we want to keep the key things in there and build around that. The foundations of how you transform, how you add value, those need to be in there as a starting point.
Yeah, It is key too. I think that, and you talk about it and you put it out there, and you know that's part of the marketing. But we'll get into marketing in a tick. But yeah, I agree with that. And do you find people come to you and they've already got methodology or frameworks, or is it that's part of what you do is to help them draw that out of themselves?
Yeah, most of my clients are predefined framework. They're probably in the process of thinking about it as opposed to having consolidated it. So we'll it's all in like one fell swoop, right? It's what do I want to be known for? How much do I want to be charging? Who are the right clients for this? Therefore, what's the vehicle, the method as we're talking about to deliver this? And if the framework might need to be chopped and refined based on those other things, because you might think that somebody needs 100 steps, but actually they only want to buy 5 because that's what the market demands. So it's
Yeah.
a back and forth process between myself and my clients to help them get to that, the nub of it. But you kind of mentioned this before, like people like to see a framework and a methodology. But actually, when you start working with somebody, they want you to really tailor it to them. So you just need to have that like outline of how it could go and be open to the fact that it can sometimes be flexible to where your client needs the most help.
Yeah. Otherwise, if you don't want to do that, then you create a course where you're kind of hands off, and the methodology stands within a course or a program. Number 4, counting down to number 5. Number 4 is how to, in quotes, do sales and marketing, and undoubtedly, there's a lot of your clients don't like this aspect of things.
Yeah, I think people often hate to be thought of as salesy. They hate the idea of being a salesperson. But I say this either in this guide or something else I've written recently, which is, if you want to have a business and be a one-person business owner, you really cannot escape sales. Whether it feels like cold calling is a different question, but at one point or another, you have to say to somebody, "Do you want to work on this together?" Ask for the sale and send an invoice, right? So the point of this piece is explaining how marketing and sales are not one and the same thing. Posting on Instagram or LinkedIn about your services or about the walk to work you had and the lesson you learned, like that's not sales. That's awareness building. That's creating community. That's creating value. That's showing what you know. But asking for a sale is intimate. It's a one-to-one conversation. It's a
Yeah.
proposal or a discovery call or an email that's personalized. So in order to have the right to ask somebody to work with you, marketing kind of builds that bridge to that point, as you know very well. So the point
Yep.
of this post is to help often new entrepreneurs really who've grown up in the kind of more Instagram era of entrepreneurship, who think that selling is posting on social. I really want to fight against that idea that you just show up online and then you win business, because that's how it can seem if you're following people on like the social channels. Because if you have a really well-oiled marketing machine, sometimes that does happen. They get loads of inbound inquiries. But what you don't see as a watcher of that process is you don't see the discovery call that happens where that prospect actually goes, "Oh, I don't know, actually, I've been following you online and I'm not even sure I get it," and they ghost you, right? People don't
Yep.
know that happens. So you need to understand that as marketing, get really good at that, figure out your unique way of marketing that suits you and your business and your skills. And I mentioned in there, like I gave up my YouTube. I still have some stuff on YouTube, but I gave up pushing that as like a core channel because I just didn't like scripting. I didn't like showing up on my own at a studio, and I hated that. I love writing, So for example, my marketing is lots of writing, and then I talk about what happens when you actually get to the point of a sale. I talk a lot about the mindset, of feeling confident enough to ask for the sale, of being authentic, of ethical selling, of knowing whether your potential client is ready to buy from you or not. So um, a lot of it comes down to knowing your ideal customer persona, knowing whether you're doing the marketing or the selling, and then knowing the kind of steps in that sales process, including asking for the sale, listening, following up, not taking things personally, that kind of thing.
And you, this is it sounds sounding this is more around a service based business, of which a lot of one person businesses, and you deal with a lot of professionals. That's what they're going to be selling services, and we'll get into productization shortly, which will change the selling
Yeah.
and how you do sell. I mean, I look at I'm sort of I'm I come from a PR background, and a lot of anything to do with building a relationship with people is I think PR and owned, earned, and social media, and then it paves the way for marketing, which is starting to get more into your messaging and your sales pitch, and as you say, the sales process right at the pointy end is really a conversation. Really, by that stage, people have they hopefully know you, like you, respect you, trust you, and are well down the track with you. And I guess the goal for doing a lot of that sort of stuff is to try and get rid of the competition too, because you want to be, and you've talked uniqueness all the way through, you want to be the only person with no competitors, but it takes a fair bit to get to that point.
Yeah, and that's where marketing does play a role, because by the time they get to that one-to-one conversation with you, ideally they've been following you, they've been in your world, they like you, and you're like the number one choice, and it's yours to lose that sale if you don't deliver value on that call, or assuming it's a call, you don't seem trustworthy or build enough rapport. And I've done these things, I say this from experience, just being like, oh, my marketing should do the job, I can just turn up and have a quick chat and then talk about how my program works. No, it's like you have to really develop relationships, and I want that because I'm going to be working with people for 5 months. So yeah, it's about bringing people into your world, inviting the right people into your world. You're not for everybody, you never will be, and then showing them how you can help them, and if they say no, that's fine as well. This is part of the process.
Yeah, indeed. And in terms of the I guess the sales side of things is that conversation. Do you find that it sounds like a lot of your clients, it's not something maybe they never had to really do when they were in a corporate gig, for example, and today you've got to be a salesperson as well as a marketer as well as the service delivery person.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's literally says it on the tin, doesn't it? One person business. One person is doing an entire business set of skills and operations. So it's not for the faint-hearted. So you have to love the service. You have to love what you deliver. But you kind of have to learn to love sales, or learn to just get on with it, and marketing. And obviously we can talk about the admin side of things, but you can easily delegate that stuff. I think selling in a one-person business for a service, it's selling yourself, because you're selling your ideas, your creativity, access to time to you, and it brings up all kinds of vulnerabilities around self-worth, credibility, am I ready? And so what I do in my coaching isn't, oh, here's a sales playbook, good luck. It's what's coming up for you when you think about sales. Where are you at in your own journey? What's your money mindset? What are your fears, your insecurities? And really holding someone's hand through that process to get ready to sell. So yeah, a lot of my clients aren't making six figures yet. They're like starting to put their programs together, starting to put their packages together, asking for the sale, coming to me going, I made my first sale, or I made my first 10K or whatever, So I've obviously worked with people later on, but I do find I have a lot of value to add at that early stage, when it is, I left my corporate gig, I want to work for myself. Oh my God, I have to sell myself now. Yeah, and that's where the coaching can be really impactful.
They've all told themselves, well, what's worse going to happen? I have to go back to my corporate gig. And by that stage, no, I don't really want to go back to it. And the fifth one, which is a really good one, and something we talk about a lot on the podcast, is how to scale your time and make enough money. But really, walk us through that, and then we'll get into the ladders of wealth creation, because there's some great stuff to talk about that as well.
Yeah, well, Trevor, you kind of alluded to it. The ladders of wealth creation explains this a little bit further. So just as a starting point, the reason I talk about a service-based business rather than being a creator or building a course or creating digital programs is that in order to create wealth, or replace your corporate salary or pay your bills, whatever it is, you need chunky income in one go. And the best way to get that is through delivering a service. You might charge £1,000, £20,000 or dollars, or whatever. But if you're trying to sell an ebook for $5 and you've started out, you do the maths, right? It takes years or whatever, or you need an existing audience of hundreds of thousands to make decent money. So start with a service, because if you are a professional, you have expertise, you can really help somebody through doing that. And then over time, you'll learn what works, what doesn't work. You'll see what kind of clients are the ones buying your service. You'll see the questions they've asked, and you'll know which form of delivery works best. Okay, cool. So I know my marketing, my niche, I know the messaging that resonates, I know the steps I've taken people through. Now I can put it into a course or a book or a program. Amazing, do that. And that's kind of the journey I want people to go on. It's one I'm trying to go on in the right time, because the one-to-one stuff is so powerful, and it's really underrated how powerful it can be. I say one-to-one, it could be you working with a business or whatever. It doesn't have to be an
Yeah.
individual, but point
And
being that you're hands-on, and that's the starting point, and then it's about creating value.
yeah, and that's the time for money, which most people are familiar with. And the more successful you are, particularly if you're running, otherwise you're building an agency if you're putting people on to do it. But the more successful you are, then the more burnout you're going to have. So, and I guess as you alluded to earlier, it's how much you're charging too. If you're not charging enough, well, then you're going to have to see more people to make the money that you need to put food on the table. But and that'll depend also on your, I guess, the industry and what you do. So that's time for money, and then your own service business really is charging by project. Hourly work is what we've just talked about, and managing a team to do this service work. In terms of that, are you talking about getting freelancers to do stuff? You're still classed as a one-person business because you're not really employing people, but is that what you're talking about there?
Yeah, so there's so many ways you can cut it, and I think this kind of comes down a little bit to the industry you're in. So things like design or creative, it's a lot easier to outsource and get a team to support you to deliver a project, compared
Correct.
to like a consultant, thought leader, or coach, when the time that you're delivering is the thing that people are paying for, is like sitting in a room with you. So it's quite hard to outsource that. So the piece that I think people skip over is going from I'm charging for an hour or a day rate to, oh, I have something completely productized. There's that bit in the middle, which is I've charged my client 5,000 for this month, and I'm going to deliver the work on my own time. And you might think that you've charged time for money, but you haven't really, because you're really giving yourself a salary for that month, and you're going to deliver that work in the time that suits you. And if you need to take your kids to school, or if you need to be sick for one day, you're still getting paid for that month.
Yeah.
And that's the place I help people get to, rather than, oh, I'm sat at my desk and I'm online and I'm being paid for that hour or day, to, okay, I've got some financial safety here because I've sold 3 programs to deliver over the next 3 months. As long as I can find time within those 3 months, I can do it on my own schedule. So that's the bit that I want to help people get to.
Yeah.
And then, to divorce that time from money equation even further, how does that go? Well, yes, you could hire a team, but some people don't want a team. They don't want the admin, the costs. What does that look
Yeah.
like instead? Maybe it's taking on less clients at a higher fee. Maybe it's doing some done for you, some done with you. Maybe it's creating a book or a program or a course that supplements the one-to-one time. Maybe it's creating a group thing or a
Yeah.
workshop. So the leveraging time for money can look different, and it all comes back to those earlier pieces of this puzzle. What do you want to do? What are your goals? What suits you by way of delivery? And so, we could work our way across that wealth ladder, which maybe you can link in the show notes so that people can
Yeah.
see this. And it's moving across that wealth creation ladder is where your time and money are divorced the furthest.
Yeah.
But for a one-person business owner, you kind of want to be seeing your clients at some point. I assume you probably don't want to not have any interaction and just be selling products through Shopify.
And the other thing about seeing your clients is that that's where you find what people want and need and their questions, and it's great for the content you create, and you understand which clients you want to work for and which ones you maybe don't. So it's a hotbed of, it's like a lab really, and I think that there is a danger too, and we see it a lot of people who are selling stuff online and everything, but they're divorced from the one. They don't want to talk to anyone, but the problem then is that they become almost irrelevant because the world's moving too quickly, and you've got to find out what people want, what your clients are needing. And gosh, it's very easy to, I mean, even from my world, the higher up you go in an agency, the less you see of clients. But I can tell you now, you get out of sync really quickly, and even why I teach a lot about content and content marketing, and that's why I'm doing it. I have to be in the trenches doing it, because otherwise you're going to be irrelevant pretty quickly. So But I really like what you just said is about, if it's a mindset thing, is you do the work on your own time, because you might have some face-to-face with the client, but then you go off and do some work, whatever it is, like developing a strategy, for example, which is what I do. That's the consulting part of what I do. Then, you do it when you've got time. So if you want to knock off early, you can, or you want to go to the gym, and that's why have a business if you can't do those things,
Yeah.
Otherwise you're just a slave, and you're in a probably worse position than what you were earlier as a corporate person. So the third part of the ladder, the third rung, I suppose it's not even a rung, the next bit is, so we've had time for money, your own service business, and then productized services. So let's talk about those ones, shall we?
Yeah, and before we do, I just want to call out, because I imagine there's coaches like myself listening, and being live with a client in real time at a predetermined time, like that's fine as well. It doesn't have to just be that you're allowed to work whenever, because your clients and you have appointments, you meet up, but it doesn't mean that you're only getting paid for that hour. You've kind of sold a program where they agreed to meet you 4 times a month for 5 months, which is my case, so you've got that kind of banked. And if you need to reschedule one of those hours, fine. But the point is that you've got a commitment from somebody up front, and that commitment allows you to go and do content creation from a place of safety and enjoyment, and maybe create time in your schedule to create a productized service or program or book. So on this ladder, the next one, the productized services, is basically kind of what I just said, actually, like selling a package. So you're going to have access to this service, but you're paying for a package of it rather than a one-off. Okay, so maybe it's a 12-month commitment, or it might be that you have got a team helping you, or that you've created an aspect of that is a subscription. So maybe there's a group call every month where you bring all your clients together. So it's basically anything that slightly removes that question of where is my next client coming from, or who's going to deliver this work and how's it going to go. And it's we've predetermined up front what this service is going to look like over a period of time, or in a group setting.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things to unpack there. The program, you've mentioned program a fair bit, and I guess if you're consulting, coaching, a lot of consulting is super tailored to that individual or that company that you're dealing with, and they've got their own issues and problems. And sure, you might put your methodology on top of it, your framework, and which gives it a little bit of a spine, but then everything else is customized to that client, and so that's where you've got to go with the flow, and you charge more for that. But the next layer in is you can, as you said, develop a program where people can kind of buy it off the rack. They're still buying you, and it's still like consulting, coaching, or advisory, but they're getting a predetermined result, aren't they? They're buying a transformation, they're buying a result, they've got a pain point. So you need to create that program around what is a really strong pain point for your ideal client, and then package it up in a way. So it might be 8 weeks, as you say, 1 hour or one meeting a week for 8 weeks. And over that period of time, this is what we'll cover. And within what we'll cover is a lot of stuff. And you can customize that, but basically you're not reinventing the wheel all the time. So there's a lot to be said with that. And I guess the other thing is, rather than when you're consulting, as you know, you've got to write proposals, and proposals can take time. I don't whip out the same proposal at all. Maybe I should. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. But I've been doing it for 30 years, and I still write proposals. But I've also got a program now where this is it, and I can talk you through it. But it's just a little bit more structured.
Yeah. It's kind of, you are the expert. So you're saying to your clients, I know that you're going to need X, Y, Z to achieve this goal that you tell me you have. And you've told me that you don't have X, Y, Z. So we're going to ensure that over the course of working together that you have those things in place. In addition to that, other things might come up that I haven't predicted, because you're unique, your business is unique. And I have a toolkit of other things that I've used over the past with clients, or that I've done for myself, and I can introduce those. And if there's something that I don't know and that we haven't got a ready-made tool for, I'm going to go and research it or create it or ask someone in my network. it's showing that roadmap so people feel like they're in safe hands, that you're the expert, that you can deliver the things that you say you're going to do, and that you do have a toolkit of knowledge in a library and wherever that is. Mine's in Notion, it might be in your head, but also that they know that you're going to show up for them and respond to what comes up through their own unique needs in that time frame. Because if it is, like you said before, very strict framework and there's no deviation from it, then why are you doing your one-to-one work? That should be a course.
Yeah, that's right. And the other interesting part to that is that you use the word. What was the word you just used? I've just gone off the
roadmap.
Doesn't matter. Sorry.
Was it roadmap?
The roadmap. How did you know? How did you know I was going to talk about that? I use the word roadmap. I love it. I love the word roadmap because you can be purposeful, meandering a little bit, and you can go down back alleys, and you maybe at some blind turns and go off the side a little bit and stop and whatever. I mean, that's enough of the analogy, but a lot of people are selling formulas and all of that sort of stuff where it's which might have worked for them, but it doesn't necessarily work for you or for me or anyone else. So I like the roadmap where there's a bit of self-discovery, but there's still a plan of getting somewhere. Everyone's going to get there differently. So we're on the same path.
Yeah.
On the same pathway.
We're on the same roadmap. Yeah, like recently I showed my roadmap to a client for the time we're going to spend together, and they said, love that, but I have a real problem with this thing that's right at the end, and it's to do with money and financial planning. And I said, should we have a conversation about that now, so that doesn't kind of eat away at your progress and make you think, oh, well, all this stuff is good, but then will I be able to do the money stuff? So we're starting with that, and that's fine. We'll probably come back to it again. So yeah, it's that flexibility you need to have.
Yep. And the final one we won't really spend too much time on, but it's that's when things start getting selling products, and that's where you're talking about marketplaces and SaaS products. That's when you're building apps and programs and those sorts of stuff. Do you find many of your clients get into these? Oh, well, you've got digital products there, which is courses and books and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, absolutely, that's that productized. So there's a lot under the product side, isn't it? I mean, at the simplest, it's books and it's recorded workshops and paid for webinars and all of those things. Courses and programs. Are you seeing your clients, or the ones that are probably more established, moving towards that? Also in that is, as we know, people do build online marketplaces and apps and other software tools. I don't see that as much, but we do see it.
It absolutely exists, and that there's a reason that it's the top ladder, the furthest along on this journey, because it's the most complex. And I say in very bold print here, like if a one-person business is your end goal, you probably don't need to build an entire marketplace, because what happens then is you need like a software team to develop it and iterate it. So if you really want a one-person business delivering a service that you love with clients you love, you probably don't need to scale your time for money that much. You're in a different game. You're in the founder VC game, right? So what's at the bottom of that ladder? You mentioned it yourself: courses, books. Exactly, you could do a webinar once, record it and sell it for $50, and that is still very divorced from your time to money, without needing to build the next Facebook or eBay.
That's right. And the other thing is, some of those people might not be ready for your service. We've talked, we know the old ladder of value, where you've got the low value thing of $27 or $57, which is entry point for some people, and you got your free stuff, then you got your middle one, and then you got your higher ticket, and that's another ladder. That kind of makes sense. It's interesting. I'm working with a client who's sort of in leadership, the broad leadership training space for large corporations, and he's I love the way how he cuts it, because he can go in and he'll do the workshop with the leaders, and then often he has to do then the leadership stuff with the middle management, and then they'll get him to do a keynote talk at their getaway or their confab or whatever, their conference, and he's also creating a course as well that is lower down the chain, but for the same company. So out of one client and one company, he can sell 3 or 4 different things to them, and it's an ongoing relationship, which is terrific. So That's great, Ellen. But it's been a pleasure chatting with you on all of this. You have a terrific newsletter called The Ask, which is the name of your business, of course. Tell us about that. How can people find that?
Yeah, so the ask is a kind of additional aspect to what I do, kind of like we've been talking about. It helps bring the message and the support I offer in coaching in a free kind of format. And I write weekly at the moment, so we can link the sign up page. But if you do join and you're a one person business owner or aspiring business owner or a service provider, I talk about all these things that we've discussed today and go into quite a lot of detail, so I might do a whole post on how to get clients or how to overcome your mindset gremlins or what does productizing your service look like. So there's about 3,500 people all over the world reading it, and I love writing it. So yeah, I'll be in good company, hopefully, if people sign up.
Terrific. And you are starting to interview people as well and talk about their businesses and that. So plenty for people to get their teeth into.
Thank you so much, Trevor.